Hey, welcome back to Own Guard Solutions. Today I thought I would shoot a video and talk about firearm cleaning, cleaning our guns, and walk you through some of the equipment, some of the attachments, the cleaning rods and pads, the bore snakes, some of the solvents, lubricants and protectors, or the CLPs. They're combining a lot of things now into one product called a CLP. It's cleaner, lubricant, and preservative, or I call it, I say protectant. But either way, walk you through some of those things today real quick. And so, for a lot of people just getting started with firearms, the question comes up a lot is, how often should I clean my guns? And that's a perfectly good question, a fair question to ask. When I was growing up, shooting with my dad and my granddad both taught me, especially my dad taught me to I should be cleaning my guns after every use. Okay, so that's what I did. Whether I was out hunting or target practicing with my 22 or hunting with my single shot 12 gauge. When I got back to the house, either later that same day or within a couple of days, or maybe the coming up weekend, if it was Sunday afternoon, I might wait till the next weekend, but sometime pretty soon after shooting, I was cleaning my firearms, and that worked out great. My guns were generally always clean and protected. Now I've all grown up, and now especially that I carry for defensive purposes and because I like it, I shoot a lot more. I shoot a lot more than I ever did growing up. And so when you're shooting a lot, cleaning becomes a chore, or even more of a chore. And let's face it, I'm not going to lie, cleaning a firearm can take some time. Now, you can take shortcuts and get a real nice wipe down and punch the bore, clean the bore out a couple of times, punch the bore a couple of times. Sure, you can do a down and dirty that'll get you by to the next time you shoot, maybe. But gun cleaning generally takes some time, maybe 30 minutes to an hour per firearm, for example. So it all depends. So do I recommend that you clean your gun after every time you use it? In the ideal world, and if we had time, yeah, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Do I say you have to do that? Absolutely not. And look, you're going to know your firearms best based on how much you shoot, or how long it's been since you've broken it out on the mothballs the last time. All of those things matter. And if you shoot competition, you know your firearms better than anybody, and you're going to know when that gun needs to be cleaned before anyone else does. So it depends. Today's modern firearms can get really dirty before they start malfunctioning, and that's really what you're trying to avoid. In addition to protecting the metal on the gun, whether it's rust or wear and tear, protecting it from the rust, or keeping that barrel clean and free of obstructions so it does shoot well and doesn't cause any safety issues, you're going to know. But most modern firearms can go hundreds, if not thousands of rounds before you have to clean them. Now, do I recommend, am I sitting here telling you that I recommend that you wait for hundreds or even thousands of rounds before you clean? Absolutely not. I'm just saying that it's not vitally important that you are cleaning them every single time you go to the range or get home from a competition, whatever you're doing, or hunting, whatever you're utilizing your firearms for. I'm just saying that they can go a while, and again, you're gonna know when they need it. Either they're so dirty you can't stand it anymore, or you shoot so much so often, your gun's gotten so dirty that you're noticing that it's just not performing as smoothly as maybe as it usually does, or maybe you've gotten it to the point of having malfunctions of some sort, misfeeds, for example. Whatever it is, you're going to know when it's time. But I will recommend, and I will say, that you need to keep them clean regularly. And I know a lot of folks don't shoot that often, and you may be one of those. You keep it in the box and you keep it hopefully in the safe or a lock on it, and you shoot it and it's another 6 to 18 months plus before you pull it out of the mothballs again. And that's fine, but even guns that are kept stored, you want to take them out once in a while and inspect them and make sure that protectant that's keeping it from rusting is holding up. Of course, stainless steel Firearms we don't have to worry about quite as much, but the blued ones, even though they're blued, you know, the oils from our fingerprints, our fingers can cause those blued pieces to rust. The oils cause rust if we're not keeping them protected. Plus you want to knock the dust off that thing from time to time and make sure that barrel is still unobstructed from dust or whatever else. So I would say even if you're not shooting a lot, you still want to take the time to inspect your firearms and make sure they are clean and protected from rust if nothing else. And so you're going to figure out what the frequency of cleaning is. But today I wanted to come on here and just kind of walk through some of the tools, some of the equipment. And I don't claim to have everything or the latest and greatest. I've had a lot of my stuff for a lot of years. That's the nice thing. I've said it, and it's not just got to do with gun cleaning gear, but if you buy nice stuff or decent stuff, it tends, and you take care of it, it tends to last a while. So I'm not claiming I have the latest and greatest or super slick. I did want to walk through some of the solvents and CLPs that are out there, mention a few that I know of. Of course, there are tons, and it seems like there's more coming out, or at least I'm learning more about new ones all the time of what's available. Going back to cleaning your gun and when you should clean it, one thing I will mention before I start showing you things is that when you get a new gun, and I'm not saying you have to do it the first time you get it out of the box, but when you do get a new gun, especially after the first time or two you shoot it, I feel like you do want to clean a new gun shortly after you get it, especially after you've fired, you know, a couple of hundred rounds through it, or even 50. It's a good idea to clean a new gun to get all the factory gunk off of it, the factory grease, the factory lubrication, whatever it is. Strip all that off, clean it the way you want to clean it with the solvents and CLPs that you want to use. That way, you know that firearm is clean. It's been done the way you want it. You've used the product that you want to use, and you know that firearm's in good shape and cleaned and protected because you've done it. So I would say if you have a new firearm, that is a good time to clean it for the first time at least. And then after that, you'll figure it out. So let's get started with what I have to show you here today. Okay, we're back to show you some of the firearm cleaning equipment, gear, solvents, CLPs, some cleaning kits you might consider, and just some tools that you might consider for yourself if you don't already have something good. So just a couple of points to go through before we get into the gear and tools is that, as I was trying to say earlier, is that one of the reasons why you want to clean your firearm shortly after you purchase a new one is by field stripping and cleaning your firearm. It's a good way to get to know that firearm. Suffice it to say, once you clean a firearm for the first time, you're going to know it way better than just shooting it. And yes, of course, shooting is the fun part and the part that we're all looking forward to. And you certainly get to know the firearm in that way as well, but it's different. When you tear down a firearm to clean it, you're getting to know how to do that first and foremost, and it should only take a time or two for you to know it. Most firearms are usually pretty generally easy to break down to clean, but it just gets you an opportunity to become familiar with it, dare I say intimate with it, get to know it, see how it operates, compare it to other firearms that you may have, that sort of thing. So that's another important point to cleaning that firearm after you get it sooner than later, just so you can get to know it. And then the other thing that I want to emphasize, as always, because I'm big on it, is safety. Anytime you're cleaning your firearm, you want to make sure that firearm is empty, has no rounds in it. And I would say that you don't want to test your firearm by pulling the trigger because you can't remember if you cleared it yet. So you're just going to pull the trigger to use that as a means of testing to see if it's loaded or not. You might laugh, but I have seen that happen more on one occasion and seen some negligent discharges because of it. So definitely don't want to pull the trigger on your weapon to ensure that it's empty. I happen to have a little CZ P10S. It's a micro compact, I guess you could say. First of all, I'm going to take it out of the holster, and the magazine's already out. As I've mentioned in other video before, I don't even keep magazines in the same room with me when I'm working on a firearm or cleaning a firearm, and there's not even any ammunition in this room with me at this point. Again, the magazine's removed and not even in here. I'm going to rack the slide a few times, and then I'm going to look down in there, and I'm going to visually inspect the chamber, maybe even stick my finger in there to make sure this firearm is empty, and it is indeed clear and unloaded and ready to be worked on. So I just wanted to cover the importance of safety when we're working. You want to keep that muzzle pointed in a generally safe direction and keep your finger off the trigger like you would any other time when handling a firearm, but safety is so key, and cleaning is no exception to that rule. So where to start? Lots to talk about. You know, when I was growing up, I was introduced to Hoppe's, and Hoppe's number 9. And some of you probably have seen this and have heard of it. And even just recently, I was doing some research online to see what the top cleaners of firearms are. And of course, you know, you have to be careful of some of those top best of list, because they're written by folks that are getting paid to promote whatever. And sometimes you'll see that in the fine print at the top or the bottom of the articles. Other times you won't necessarily. But I can tell you, and I feel like the reviews are true, Hoppe's number 9 still shows up at the very top of a lot of best of or recommended firearm cleaners. You can't go wrong with it. It's been around. I was studying before this. I think the guy, I think his name is Frank Hoppe. I may have gotten his first name wrong, but Hoppe filed for the patent or for the trademark of Hoppe's number 9 in 1907. So suffice it to say, this stuff has been around a long time. And number 9, do you know what the number 9 stands for? I've always been curious. It's kind of like intriguing, like WD-40. If you don't know what WD-40 stands for, look that up. But number 9 is the number of chemicals that this contains. And so I will say the biggest drawback to this is that you want to use it only in a well-ventilated area. It is toxic because, you know, it's a chemical solvent. But man, is it good stuff. So this is where I got my start, and I can't say enough good things about it, except that you want to use it in an extremely well ventilated space. Yes, you can get away with doing it indoors, but just know you're going to stink up the place, and you'd be better off trying to find a place outside ideally, or in your garage with the door open, so long as it's not near any flames, etc. You know the routine on this stuff. So we've got a lot more of solvents and CLPs and cleaners to cover, but I just wanted to take you through some gear and kind of walk you through my evolution of cleaning. And that's with the good old cleaning rod. And you can see here, this actually came, so kind of backing up here a moment. One of the things that you can start with is Hoppe's number 9 comes up with the cleaning kits, and they're very basic, very brittle plastic tray, some patches, some lube, some solvent, number 9 solvent. You'll get a rod, a handle, and we'll walk you through that. Some copper, I think these are copper, bristle brushes, some other attachments in here. I would say, just starting out, the Hoppe solvent and the cleaning kits are a great place to start. And again, let me also say here as a sidebar note, I have no affiliation with Hoppe's number 9 or any other product that I'm going to be showing you here today. I have not gotten paid to do this or talk about these things. I'm just talking them from my personal experience and my opinions on these things. So just to get that out of the way, but just as a basic place to start, relatively inexpensively, Hoppe's number 9 is like a complete kit for you. But with that being said, there's others. Like here's a kit that includes quite a bit of basic stuff that CZ makes and includes with some of their firearms. I forget what firearm this came with, but CZ puts out a basic cleaning kit as well. Another one that you'll see out there that's a wrong decal patch on here, but this is an Otis kit, and like for example, they can all be a little bit different, but have a cleaning cable to run through the barrel, some nice brass attachments, and some Otis cleaning. They've got a safety thing for your barrel and slide to let people know you're working and that firearms chamber is empty, unloaded. They've got some cleaner in here included. So you can get any number of cleaning kits, and so it makes it really convenient and an easy place to start. So let's talk about what else. So going back to the cleaning rod, this is kind of in my mind, and it's because, in fairness, it's the way where I got started, the cleaning rod. And the idea being is that you can build these things in sections. So maybe if you're just using a pistol, cleaning a pistol, I should say, you might just start with this piece, or the end piece section that we'll show you here in a minute, which has the attachment end for the attachments. But the idea here is that if you're working on a pistol, you keep it shorter, obviously, but if you're working on a typical sized length-barreled rifle, you would assemble your cleaning rod, usually in 2 or 3 sections. And then you have the end down here for your various attachments that you want to put on there, whether you're running patches through your barrel or brushes, for example. I'm just picking up random ones here, but this is kind of what you can expect with the rod. And the idea being is that, using this handle, which is free-floating, spinning on the rod, you would use this rod to punch the bore. That's kind of like where the terminology punching the bore comes from, or at least that's going to be my somewhat educated guess, is that you're pushing this down from the business end of the barrel down to the chamber and running pads. Like I said, this is for a smaller caliber. I think this is not for the 22. Without looking, it doesn't tell me, but anyway, they make all different sizes attachments. You can see here's a little bit bigger for a larger caliber pistol or rifle, and here's a cotton swab for a 12 gauge shotgun, and they do make an attachment. So you can see the end of this is very small. They make an attachment for this that converts up so you can attach things larger. So you really do have a whole smorgasbord of things you can run through that barrel to get it cleaned. And, the barrel arguably is probably the most important piece to have cleaned, certainly near the top of that list, because you definitely don't want to shoot a gun with an obstructed barrel. So you want to keep that barrel clean, and these rods are just going to enable you to do that. And as you're cleaning, what you're doing is you've got different types of pads. Just going to bring out a few of these, and you run these through, let's say, this big caliber. This is probably for my 12 gauge shotgun. You're going to take one of these pads, you're going to dip it in some of the solvent, for example, and then run that through the barrel to break up and loosen up all the gunpowder and carbon and lead that's been deposited in that barrel. You might have to do that a couple times. You're going to run the solvent through, let it sit for a minute, and then you're going to start running clean, dry pads. And again, they make all kinds, all sizes, all different. I think I got a couple of the same thing here, but you can cut them down if they're too big. You can cut them down yourself. Some are rigged for, I think this is for the Otis, where you kind of do a tri-fold of these rounded pads to attach on the end of their cables and whatnot. Otis makes a cable like this in addition to the one I just showed you. So you're going to be running those pads through the barrel to dry out the solvent that you put in there once it's had a moment to go to work and break down all that junk that's in the barrel. And then you're going to start punching clean pads down through there until that pad comes out clean or mostly clean. One of the things that I love, and I have since moved away from the rods with all the cleaning tips, and just to give you kind of an idea of the versatility and the number of things that you can do with the end of the rod. That's just an example of a few of the things that you can attach to the end of the rod to run down in your barrel. And it's usually based on bristle type. Some prefer nylon or plastic bristles. Others prefer generally copper. Some are plastic, like I said. So you got a whole smorgasbord of things to run down when you're punching a barrel with a rod. And of course, you know, your firearm, your pistol may come with a rod that's built for its size and whatever. So here you can see one that has some plastic bristles built into the metal twist rod. I forget which one this is for, but likely maybe a 45 looks like. And then this one is a plastic one. It's got the slots for the rags to go through, and then it still allows a thread, you know, a threaded attachment to be attached to the end as necessary. So you got a lot of options when it comes to those. Some of the other things that you're going to want in your kit, and of course, you know, they make all kinds of attachments for rods, right? I mean, rods have been the way firearms have been cleaned for a lot of years now. So there's a lot of options. Some of the other tools that you're going to want for yourself is some sort of brush. You can see this one has kind of a toothbrush kind of thing going on one end, and then on the other a much smaller toothbrush, if you will. And that's going to help you clean off those surfaces that are just really super caked on with baked on lead and carbon in there. They make not just copper wire bristled like this, but they make a couple of stiffness variations of plastic bristle brushes as well. I have some of those laying around. Matter of fact, there's one that you can put on as an attachment to a rod. This is more nylon or plastic. And so brushes are your friend. Another thing that you're going to want is I use a simple bamboo chopstick. I have a pair of chopsticks, and I'm really looking to work that point and make sure it's not blurry. I'm really looking to work that point into the nooks and crannies as I need to. I'll sometimes put a pad over the end of that to help work. They make a brass version. You typically will see brass as the metal used with attachments or tools like this, because brass is softer than steel, so it won't scratch up and damage. It may leave behind some residue because it is a softer metal than steel, but it won't. The idea being is it will not damage the steel. So something to get down into those nooks and crannies. They make, trying to move things out of the way here, they make all types of different hooks and attachments and doodads to get down into those. I find sometimes that these hooks are a little flimsier than you wish they were. They almost look like dental tools, but unfortunately they can be a little flimsy, and so it makes it more difficult to clean out those areas. But anyway, a good set of hooks and scrapers and things like that's not a bad idea. But for me, the godsend has been the bore snake. And I don't know if there's a generic term for them or not, but essentially you buy it based on the caliber that you're cleaning it on. This one, for example, is 22. So you can get them all the way down to 22, all the way up to for a 12 gauge shotgun. And I'll just use this one as an example. And this one's got some gunk on the bristles, but basically it's a cloth. Not sure entirely what it is. Maybe cotton, maybe a mix of cotton and nylon, who knows? I don't really care, it just works. You've got it on a piece of what appears to be something similar to paracord. The end has a piece of, again, likely brass clamped onto the paracord. It will remind you of what the caliber is for, and I know this one's for my 12 gauges. And you would dangle this in from the chamber end of the barrel, let it come out of the front or the business end of the barrel, and then you would pull this thing through the barrel. And let me tell you, 10 times with these things, any of these based on the caliber, your barrel's going to be clean, unless you got something really nasty like a lead buildup. We can talk more about that, but you know, you go from the paracord, which really gets you started into the chamber. You pull that through. The goal is to get this material through there that has these copper bristles embedded into the material, and this is what cleans the barrel ultimately. And then this, you know, follows that up and really cleans it out. And I think most of the time they recommend running this through about 10 times, and your barrel is going to be pretty much spotless. And again, it's quite a mangled mess here, which can be a little bit of a challenge, but it's easy to get undone. You're going to buy this based on the caliber that you need. I think this is either for my 9 or 40 caliber, but you can see all of them, same principle. They got cloth, and then they've got the embedded copper bristles. And let me tell you, once you try the bore snake out, you're never going to go back, or likely never going to go back to the rod ever again. So I do want to point out that some of the pads and some of the bristles attachments get very specialized. So if you're a fan of the AR-15, you may or may not be familiar with these. These are star chamber pads, specifically to go into the star chamber of your AR-15 to really help you get down into that gear section. So the idea is that you attach this to your rod, one case at least for still needing to use a rod from time to time. Put a little bit of solvent on here, and it really allows you to get into that star chamber where the bolt and the face of the chamber, obviously, keep using that word over and over again, come together and lock up. You've got those, and then along the same lines, you have a brush specifically, and no, it does not look like a star, but it doesn't need to. This brush is specifically designed to do what these pads do, but only do it better, to get off really a lot of the carbon and gunpowder and lead buildup, carbon, all that heat in the chamber of the AR-15. And this brush is meant to go into the mouth of the chamber, and then this piece, you got to be careful, these things get prickly, but these brushes here are meant to get into that star chamber and really go to work. So if you have an AR-15, for example, you're going to be using a rod of some sort, and you're likely going to be using these and or this to get in there and get that stuff clean. So they even specialize within the section. So with that being said, I think we've covered the cleaning implements themselves. Let's talk a little bit about solvents and some of the CLPs. And I'm not going to pull these out in any particular order. I just have a few here that I'm familiar with. The first being is a CLP from Otis, which is the manufacturer of that little cleaning kit I showed you earlier. They make some stuff. I have not spent a lot of time using this. I can't speak to how good or bad it is, and so that's true for some of these I'm going to be showing you today, but Otis makes one. Another one that is a solvent specifically for barrels is this Barnes CR10, and they make things based on the strength that you need them. And I bought this specifically for one of my 22 pistols that does not like lead bullets. You're only supposed to shoot copper jacketed bullets out of it. I made the mistake of shooting 50 or 100 rounds of lead 22 out of it, and the lead deposits in that barrel were off the chart. So I had to get something a little bit tougher than usual to get in there and really clean that barrel out. And so this Barnes CR10 is what I use to do that. Of course, I'm not going to spend too much more time on it because I've already talked about it, but the Hoppe's number 9, this is kind of like a de facto standard in the gun cleaning community, so to speak. This is a tiny, I think essentially a sample, but cleanse oil. This is a solvent from cleanse oil, and the idea is that you use a few drops of this and put it on anything that's got buildup on it and let it sit for a little bit to break it down. So cleanse oil is a manufacturer of cleaner like one that I've come across more recently. I'm not sure entirely how long it's been out for, but the Slip 2000 stuff even comes recommended in some gun manuals I've heard. It's made in the USA, obviously, reading here off the bottle. They make a whole line of cleaning products. Some are supposed to be great for fully automatic weapons or high throughput competition weapons. Some are supposed to be better lubricants for cold weather. They have a whole family of these, but I thought I would start with their solvent cleaner and then their basic or one of their basic gun lubes. And I'm going to give this a whirl and may even use it in an upcoming video. So again, I don't want to say that they're a young company, but I also can't claim how long they've been around because I just myself more recently learned about these guys and have gotten some for myself. Bellastal is from Germany. It has a memorable design for their cans and whatever else. They make a spray, they make, I think, an aerosol. I think they make a pump. This is just the liquid. It's non-carcinogenic, but it's still fairly toxic, and you want to use it in a well-ventilated space. You know, I think as a general rule, it's best to do this sort of work in a well-ventilated space regardless. It's just the nature of the beast. In a lot of cases, you're using chemicals, but I've heard fantastic stuff about Bellasol, and as you can see here, it's supposed to be, or it can be used on a lot of products and not just firearms. So even leather and rubber as examples. So this would be what I call another example of a CLP. You got the lubricates, the penetrates, protects and preserves. You know, all of that's got to do with you know, keeping your gun well oiled and then, you know, fighting the rust, keeping the rust off of it. So I've heard nothing but great stuff of this over the years. And again, we're not getting paid for any of this. I'm just giving you my, spouting off my opinion off the top of my head. And we're not affiliates with any of these guys. So we've talked about the Hoppe's, and that's kind of where I got my start. Let me show you what I'm using these days that I just think is fantastic. And I'm going to bring out some different incarnations of this stuff that I have. So it's hard to do this with a camera down angle, but I have become a big fan of FrogLube. And you can see I have the family economy size of their solvent, the gun cleaner, bore cleaner, gun cleaner, everything cleaner. I believe that FrogLube, well, I know that FrogLube was developed by at least one or more former Navy SEALs, or maybe they're still active duty, not entirely sure without looking it up. Learned about this, gosh, it's been not quite 10 years ago, but it's been a while now. I'm going to say that it's fantastic. Is it a little different approach to cleaning than some of the other things? Yes, and talk about that here in a minute. But this stuff is wonderful. First of all, I think it's biodegradable, but it's non-toxic, 100% all natural, plant-based, and it even has a little, I guess, spearmint smell to it. So while it can be strong, even the paste here, you can see, stuff is, and I actually have done it, of course, when it was new, before I had dirty, lead-ridden, gunpowder-ridden brushes and such in it. I've actually tasted a little bit of it. It's all natural. It's, again, plant-based. And this stuff really goes to work. It cleans really pretty well. I think, you know, some more of the harsher solvents might clean better overall than something natural, but that's just me. That's no slam on anything natural, but all their stuff is just fantastic. And then, yes, they have a liquid, which is super viscous, sort of a thick, heavy liquid, CLP for lubrication. And then they have the paste, which I just showed you, more for general protection to go onto the firearm. So let's talk through this for a minute. I'll lay these over to give a little more, a little bit easier look to them. So the first thing you're going to want to do once you get your firearm field strip is you're going to want to spray the dirtiest parts with their cleaner here, as I'm showing you. I got this big bottle because I tend to eat through more of it than I do anything else, and the small bottles of this go pretty quickly if you are cleaning regularly or have a lot of firearms to clean. You spray this on and let it sit, and it's responsible for breaking down all that carbon and gunpowder and dare I say lead too that may be in the mix there, certainly. You're going to spray this on and let it sit, and then you're going to do, depending on whether it's the barrel or just the flat parts, as you say, the firearm, you're either going to punch your barrel with a rod or a bore snake, hopefully a bore snake in my opinion, and it's really going to get it clean, right? That's the first step. Then where it gets a little odd as compared to some other products on the market, you're going to take the paste right here. Well, first you're going to get the parts of the gun that you want, and you're going to get a heat gun or a hair dryer if that's all you got, and you're going to try to heat up those metal parts a little bit. And you don't want to hold the heat gun in one place for too long because it will melt plastics, as I'm sure you could figure out for yourself. But the idea is to get that metal heated up. Like the slide, you usually have no issues with those sorts of parts, and you want to heat them up. And then what I do with the paste is you buy some of these cheap paint brushes, and yes, the bristles will fall out in time, and the cheap ones, but you're going to brush some of the paste, and because that metal has been heated up, this paste, when you brush it on, is basically liquid, all right? And it goes on smooth as butter, smooth as melted butter, in fact. And the idea with heating it up is that the pores of the metal, the rumor is that pores of metal open up when they get heated and allow the FrogLube paste to better penetrate. And so what you're going to do is once you get the metal heated up, you're going to paint on the paste, and then you're going to let it sit. And kind of like what's in my mind when I do it is I think of car wax, if you've ever waxed a car, or maybe you haven't. But you're going to put the wax on, right? You're brushing on the paste, and then you're going to let it sit and dry. Now, I've heard some say you need to wait an hour. It can take a little bit of time for the paste to dry, but you may basically want the paste to mostly get dry. Right? And then you're going to wipe it off with a micro fiber rag, towel, whatever you have. I like microfiber. I think it does great. You certainly want to avoid anything with lint in it, ideally. And so that's the basic process of getting that gun cleaned and protected, because the paste is kind of what you use for protection. With that being said, you can also use this liquid to protect, but you're going to wipe it off, and you know it is a liquid versus the paste that you let dry to really bond with the metal of the firearm. The liquid, which again is pretty thick for a liquid, you're going to use as the lubrication points, those contact points where you want to reduce wear and tear, the contact points that you know that slide is operating off of, whatever it is that your firearm indicates that you need to place lubrication, that's what you're going to use the liquid FrogLube for. And let me tell you, in my experience with it, and I'm not saying I'm like a master or some expert with FrogLube and firearms, but this stuff keeps the firearm super lubricated. Even on a bolt in an AR-15, you don't have to keep dropping drops of oil on your bolt. At least I haven't. And again, I'm not putting 2,000 rounds through an AR-15 in a session. But for me, this stuff's held up really well. I use it on everything today. If it weren't for this, to be honest, I'd probably go back to the Hoppe's. But because this stuff is not overpowering and it is all natural and it actually smells pretty decent, I use it all the time now on everything, rifles, pistols, whatever it is. So I've blathered on about FrogLube long enough. I do think it's one that you should consider, but just know, with the heating up for the paste application, it is a little different than most anything else. The point being is that most things you don't have to heat up with a heat gun. Now that's not to say that you have to use a heat gun, but for the use of the paste, that's really just going to help. The last thing that I want to include, I have to give it a nod because this to me is a standby, is rig grease. And you can still get this stuff. I think even, well, I know Amazon even sells it. If you're using, say, something like a plain solvent, like a Hoppe's number 9, a solvent is just meant to clean and strip all the oils and grease off and all that good stuff. If you're not using a CLP like FrogLube, for example, you're still going to want some sort of protectant to prevent rust on the metal parts of your gun and even provide some degree of lubrication. Where rig excels and you don't have to use much, you just wipe it on with a rag. Like you can tell, this is actually my rig rag that I've had for years, and it's saturated with rig. I could probably put rig on a firearm without actually dabbing any new on it, not to mention just keeping this lid wiped off. This is the good stuff for rust prevention. You got to use it, but it doesn't take a lot. You wipe on a thin layer, wipe it off, and as long as you keep your greasy little fingerprints off the metal, this stuff's going to protect. So I'm a big fan of this, always have been. Now, is the recent chemical compound of this, has it not changed over the years? I haven't researched that. I can't speak to that, but generally speaking, the rig product is absolutely fantastic as a protectant. So I'm going to say that. And so with that, I think that covers everything. Again, safety first. Make sure that your weapons are clear before you begin cleaning. Do not pull the trigger ever to test to see if they're loaded. I would recommend keeping all magazines along with especially all ammo in a totally different room than your cleaning supply and your cleaning area is. Set up yourself kind of a dedicated cleaning area just to kind of help keep things organized and ammo out of that area, if you will, even if it's just on the other side of the room. Would be great, but I hope you found this useful. If you do like this video, be sure to like it below, subscribe to our channel, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.